You know, the whole Poland situation really does require me to give you some historical context. Ian Kocinski, yeah. Kocinski is like, reminds me of cat, you know, Kocinski. Because kot is cat in Polish, and Kocinski sounds like cattish or something, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Does that make sense or not at all? Maybe that's why Vosh has so many cats. Because cat is in his surname. Maybe that's the reason. Makes sense to me. Okay, I'm gonna put on some ptasie mleczko. Cat boy, yeah. I really need to explain a few things because before we can get to the article. He does like cats. True. Are you familiar with the fact that Poland does that Poland is not quite the same? Um, are you familiar with the fact that Poland is not quite the same as it used to be? Give me some special emotes or answers to the question. Did you know that Poland is not quite the same as it was before 1945? And if so, what are the differences? These are like my main two questions. Did you know that Poland is different than it used to be? And what are the differences? I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for you to tell me. Because this is the most crucial question to today's segment. This is the most crucial topic to our little segue into Russia land, into Russia, into Russia's expectations towards Poland, which is actually extra funny and extra ironic from my perspective. And we're going to talk about why. But first, we need to establish just how much you know. Don't know the difference, but I would assume it's different today. Okay? Anyone? Anyone else? Does anyone know? Does anyone know? Let me specify my question. What is the difference between Poland from 1939, so in the year that World War II started, and Poland today? What is the difference between those two Polands? The most glaring, huge difference. I don't know anything. My gosh. Okay, I'm gonna explain it, don't worry. I have explained it a bit, okay? So once again, we're gonna have to return because everything leads to my favorite topic, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. And I'm sure at this point you really love the topic as well. At this point, all of you really love to hear about the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, which is why it is my pleasure to talk about it with you. Okay? So, here we've got the Kingdom of Poland, which actually also encapsulated this terrain as well. The Great Duchy of Lithuania. And I'm gonna start a better map. Here you go. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. One big country. Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, Poland, Rus, Latvia, a bit of Estonia. You see? Yeah, I know. In the name of Redacted. Hello, welcome to the stream. So as you can see, this big country was shared by Poland, Ukraine, and Lithuania for the sake of, and Belarus, right? The countries that are now. After World War One, because this big country in the 18th century was partitioned between Russia, Prussia, and Austria. Okay? And it stopped existing. And after World War One, new nation states formed. Poland, Belarus to a lesser extent, Lithuania, Ukraine, and those countries entered a war to determine which newly formed nation state should take which territory. So Poland had a war with Ukraine for a little known city called Lviv, or you might know it as, you know it as Lviv. Some call it Lvov, which is the Polish version of the name of the city. And the conflicts that led to the war between Ukraine and Poland were of this nature. In Lviv itself, the majority of people living in the city were Polish, but on the outskirts surrounding the city, the majority of the people were Ukrainian. So sort of Ukraine declared Lviv to be a part of the newly formed Ukraine, and the Polish people in Lviv itself were sort of surprised because they wanted to join the newly formed nation state of Poland. And so Poland and Ukraine entered a state of war to determine who will get Lviv. And Poland ended up winning and taking Lviv. And a similar situation happened with Lithuania and Vilnius. And that ended in Polish map looking something like this. That ended in Polish map looking something like this. In so far so good? So far so good? Yeah, so far so good. Do we everything clear so far? Is everything clear so far? The conflicts after World War One between the newly formed nation states in Eastern Europe and then in Poland looking like this up till 1939. And if you know how Poland looks now, you might notice that it looks quite a lot different. You might notice that the map of Poland looks quite a lot different than it looks right now, right? Like, the Poland now is totally different than from we can even bring up how Poland looks now to do a little bit of a comparison, right? So this is the shape, the yellow thing. This is the shape of Poland now, right? And this is the shape of Poland before Second World War. As you can see, it's quite different, right? It is quite a lot different. And the question is, what happened right? What happened? How did a country go from looking like this to looking like this? What do you think happened? Give me your best guesses as to what happened, and I will explain it. Give me your guesses first. Give me your best guesses as to what might have happened to have transformed this into this. I'm gonna wait for some answers. War? Well, sort of yes and sort of no. As you might know, a thing happened between Germany and the USSR called the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact, right? And Germany invaded from the west, and the USSR invaded Poland from the east. But the USSR invaded and occupied terrains of Poland and incorporated them into the USSR. The USSR incorporated Vilnius by saying that it's giving it to Lithuania. It took Lviv and the terrains here by saying that it's giving it to Ukraine, while in reality it was just incorporating it into the USSR. And after the war, Joseph Stalin did a thing. He said, Poland, I might have taken away your lands from the east, which is actually something that Putin has even alluded to in his speech before invading Ukraine. But in exchange, I am giving you the western lands that we are going to carve out of Germany and incorporate into Poland. Which, of course, Poland still ended up smaller than before the war. So the USSR took the eastern lands of Poland and incorporated them into itself. And it also took the whole Kaliningrad, which was supposed to be in Poland, but the USSR took that as well. And it carved out parts of Germany to incorporate into Poland. And I will remind you that Poland at that time was still a USSR puppet state. So it was a huge win for the USSR because the USSR incorporated eastern lands of Poland directly into the USSR, while taking German lands into Poland while being in firm control of Poland. So you can see why this was a 100% win for the USSR, and how Joseph Stalin had single-handedly redrawn the borders of Poland. So we're basically up to speed, right? How it happened that Poland looks way different now than it looked before the war. And that the USSR, quote unquote, gave Poland Western lands, while of course being quiet about the taking away the Eastern lands part. Right? We're up to speed. And now, since we are up to speed, enter war in Ukraine, enter Poland helping Ukraine, enter Russia, now not the USSR, being angry at Poland for helping with refugees and many other things, and declaring that we have this here. Poland should pay Russia $750 billion for World War II liberation. So they say we have liberated you. And we have already discussed how this liberation looked like. It looked like this. The USSR partnered with Hitler, took a huge amount of Polish territory and incorporated it into the USSR, and then took parts from Germany to incorporate it into Poland. And I'm not even going to mention how the Red Army stationed on the other side of the river during the Warsaw Uprising, which caused 200,000 civilians to be slaughtered. So this is how Russian liberation looks like in practice. Says Chairman of State Duma. Duma is like this government body. The chairman of the State Duma, the lower house of Russia's parliament, has called for Poland to pay Moscow $750 billion for liberating it at the end of the Second World War and then helping it rebuild. Okay. Vyacheslav Volodin, who is a leading figure in Vladimir Putin's United Russia Party, also said that Poland must return lands that it received as part of the post-war settlement and called for a ban on Polish trucks entering Russia. So we know what lands we're talking about. We're talking about the German lands that were carved out and given to Poland, right? Which is really ironic that not Germany, but Russia would ask for those lands back, even though those lands were never Russian to begin with. But we continue, I guess. The official's remarks are part of a long-standing revisionist interpretation of history presented by leading figures in Russian politics, most notably Putin himself. Wow, what a surprise, what a shock. Gosh darn, I would not have seen this coming ever. Well, the arrival of the Red Army did end the wartime Nazi German occupation of Poland. It ushered in decades of Soviet-imposed communist rule that lasted until 1989, which I've told you, Poland was a USSR puppet state. Moreover, the war had begun in September 1939 when Stalin and Hitler colluded to invade Poland and divided between themselves. And they did. The USSR did take a lot of territory from Poland and incorporated them. As part of the post-war settlement, Poland did receive land from Germany in the West. Keyword here, from Germany, not from Russia. So Russia wanting those lands, quote unquote, back is pretty ironic. However, at the same time, it lost an even greater amount of land in the East, which became part of the Soviet Union. Well. So we're talking about cities like Lviv, cities like Vilnius, stuff like that. Poland's largest opposition group wants the government to seek war reparations from not only Germany but also Russia. It notes that Nazi Germany and the USSR both invaded in 1939, resulting in occupation, genocide, and mass deportations of Polish citizens. That is true. Because I've got a question for you. Are Polish people right now the majority of citizens of Lviv? Are Polish people the majority of citizens in Vilnius? No. No, not anymore. And do you know how that happened? It happened by what Russia does best, by playing demographics, by basically disappearing the population of a place somewhere else, usually to Siberia or something like that. So that is how, even then, the USSR slash Russia played demographics and made it that Polish people were not the majority of the population in those regions anymore. In his remarks today, made in a Telegram post that has been viewed by over 1.5 million times, Volodin claimed that Poland has forgotten that its liberation from the fascist invaders came at a high price for the Soviet people. I'm not sure if this article is going to say it, but this person said something else. It might be said later, but I'm gonna say it now, okay? This, what's his face? Where it was? Vyacheslav Volodin. He said that without the USSR, or rather without Russia, Poland would not, that Poland exists as a state only because of Russia. Now tell me this. Does this not sound familiar to you? We're playing 100 questions. Does it sound familiar? He said Poland, if it was not for Russia, Poland would not exist as a state. Does that sound familiar to you? I'm going to wait a few seconds for you to gather your thoughts, to gather your wits about you, and tell me if you've ever heard this rhetoric before in the recent years. That a certain country would not be a real country if it wasn't for Russia. It does sound a little bit familiar to me. Yeah, it does sound just like what he says about Ukraine, doesn't it? And you might not remember what I've been saying on streams when that happened. What I've been saying on streams when that happened is that you could use the same argument about Poland. And what do you know? Now the very same argument is being used about Poland. What a shocker. You know, what a shocker that Russia would predictably expand the same argument over all the other countries that it used to oppress. What a shocking development. Poland would not exist if it was not for Russia. Of course, of course. He then claimed that the Soviets spent the equivalent of 750 billion in today's terms on rebuilding and developing Poland after the war. Can I tell you something else? Can I tell you something interesting while we are at it? The person here says the Soviet Union spent 750 billion in today's terms to rebuild Poland. Do you want to know a little bit of an interesting trivia? Did you know that Poland was the most damaged country during World War II? Did you know that Poland, from what I know, suffered the most deaths, when it comes to the numbers of citizens from the entirety of World War II. I'm going to give you a number. Overall, 6 million Polish people were killed during World War II. 3 million of them were Jewish people, which means that half, more or less, of all Jewish people killed in the Holocaust were Polish people. You know? And after the war, Poland, as we have established, became a puppet state of the USSR. And do you know what the first order of business was for the USSR, and by extension, the new communist Polish government was? Yes, it was to declare officially that Poland does not want to pursue any sort of reparation from Germany. The newly formed Polish communist country received instruction from above, from Joseph Stalin, to reject any reparation from Germany. Well, I guess that's another little fact that the head of the Duma of Russia is forgetting to mention, that the USSR closed any possibility for Poland to ever receive any form of reparation from Germany for World War II, which I will remind you, Poland was the country that was most devastated by Germany out of all countries. So we should sort of take this into consideration when making the calculation, the calculus, right? Also, hello, Arkael. Also, thank you very much. And also join the page. Doing a very special segment here right now. A very fresh segment. While the Soviets did contribute to Poland's post-war recovery, they also used their control over the country to prevent it from receiving aid under the US Marshall Plan. But that's not all. That's not all. The Soviet Union also prevented Poland from seeking reparation from Germany. Okay? Those are very crucial points. Decades of Soviet-imposed communist rule also saw Poland and other Eastern Bloc countries economically fall behind the West, a gap that Poland has been able to close since regaining independence in 1980. You know, I think close is a pretty strong word, but what do I know? I'm just a giggler. After being almost completely destroyed during the war, Warsaw's old town was meticulously recreated. Apparently, the old town was actually recreated using the same bricks. I'm gonna give you some interesting. It was rebuilt using the same bricks. The process challenged traditional approaches to conservation, but was later imitated by other cities seeking a sense of historical authenticity. Inventing authenticity, how the rebuilding of Warsaw's old town became. Yeah, the old town is pretty nice. Volodin went on to accuse Poland's current authorities of demolishing Red Army monuments. It is happening to a degree, and I cannot blame Poland for doing it. Closing Russian schools, that's a first. I've not heard about this. I didn't even know there were any Russian schools. And stealing Russian property, whatever that means. Poland has recently seized properties previously used by the Russian embassy. Oh yeah! I think I know what this is referring to. I think I know what this is referring to. We might actually look into this because if I'm remembering correctly, which is an extremely, I guess the only word that comes to mind is it's an extremely Chad move because the president of Warsaw, who is actually a pretty progressive person, seized a piece of territory that used to belong to the Russian embassy and gave it to the Ukrainian refugees to use, created a big house for the Ukrainian refugees to use from the building that used to be like the Russian embassy. Yeah, I think this is what it's actually referring to, and it was really cool. It was really cool, and we all love it very much, you know? Poland was a shining example of the success of Marxist Leninism. No, 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 no. Don't even say that. So yeah, I'm gonna look into it. Okay, I'm gonna look it up. Anytime Russia accuses Poland of anything, I just say, who did what at Katyn again? True, Griever Blade. You should welcome to the stream. I'm not sure I've seen you here before, but I hope to see you on the page. Yes, there we go. I found it. I found it. It's great. I found it. It's really nice. I think this is what the article alludes to. Okay? This is what the article alludes to. Russian property in Warsaw to be given to Ukrainians, says mayor, which in Poland is a president. It's a convoluted thing. In Poland, we don't call him a mayor, we call him a president, President of Warsaw. A Russian-owned real estate complex in Warsaw will be given to Ukrainian war refugees, the city's mayor said on Monday after it was confiscated. Rafał Trzaskowski told reporters that the site, popularly dubbed Spyville, was officially appropriated by the city of Warsaw from its Russian owners on Monday morning. We are taking Spyville over. We want to give it to our Ukrainian guests, Trzaskowski said at the site. Andriy Dziecistia, Ukraine's ambassador to Poland, told PAP the complex may be used for a school or a Ukrainian culture center. The complex, which is the communist era, housed Russian embassy staff. Yes, exactly. That is what was being talked about in the article. That is exactly what was being referred to in the article. Very great, very based, you know? The complex, which in the communist era housed Russian embassy staff, contains over 100 flats. Warsaw authorities have said the flats may be given to Ukrainian families with children who have lost their homes due to Russia's invasion of their country. Amazing. You gotta say that this is just great. To take a whole big complex of apartments and buildings that used to be Russian, that was just confiscated from Russia, and give it to the refugees. You know? So this, I'm really glad we went to this article because this is what the article here is alluding to. This is what there we go. So that's the full context of why Russia is mad at Poland for confiscating Russian land. Have you already discussed the People's Republic of Belgrade today? Not the Monday news I expected. Not yet. Not yet. That's wild. I know, right? That is wild. Today's hot news is Russia demanding land from Poland. I bet everybody's talking about the People's Republic of Belgorod, but I bet no one's talking about this. I bet I'm the first person that's talking about this. So, for those who haven't seen, Russia is being invaded by Russians. Well, it is what it is. It is what it is. So, let's return. Poland has recently seized properties previously used by the Russian embassy, so we now know what that is about. But it has done so on the basis of earlier court orders ignored by Moscow. Uh-oh. Given that Poland has abandoned common history and desecrated the memory of our soldiers, wrote Volodin, it must return the territories acquired as a result of World War II and reimburse our country for the funds spent on it in the war and post-war years. Additionally, the Duma chairman proposed that Russia ban Polish trucks from entering its territory. Doing so, he said, would cost Poland 845 billion and force 2,000 Polish firms employing 20,000 drivers to go bankrupt, he says. The issue will be discussed by the Duma on Monday. So yeah. Warsaw has seized a building used by the Russian embassy as a high school for children of Russian diplomats. The decision was met with anger from the Kremlin and threats of harsh consequences. There has so far been no official response from the Polish government to Volodin's statement. In 2020, the leader of Poland's ruling party, Jarosław Kaczynski, a horrible person in his own right, a very far-right person, okay, called for Russia to pay Poland reparations for the Soviet invasion and occupation in World War II. I mean, that is fair. Russia's ambassador responded by suggesting that Poland should in fact pay Russia for liberating it from Nazi German occupation. The territories gained after World War II? You mean the territory that Russia illegally invaded in conjunction with Germany and was given back? No. No, Griverblade. No. I've already sort of explained this before, but I'm gonna quickly say it again, okay? This is the map of Poland from 1939. It contained Lviv, it contained Vilnius, and a few other things. The USSR invaded together with Germany and incorporated eastern lands into the USSR. And after the war, the USSR kept the eastern lands that it incorporated into the USSR, and in quote-unquote return, it carved out terrains from Germany and incorporated it into Poland. And those are, by the way, the terrains that now Russia demands back. The German terrains that it gave to Poland after World War II. And this is why Poland went from this to this. Poland is actually smaller than it was before World War II. Keep that in mind. Poland is actually smaller than it was before World War II. Yeah, I was attempting to be sarcastic towards the Russian attitude here. Yeah. Poland has been one of Ukraine's closest allies since Russia's invasion last year, as well as providing Kyiv with military and humanitarian aid Warsaw has also pushed for the international community to impose tougher sanctions on Moscow. And also, there are nice things coming from Poland that private companies providing ambulances. There's this person who is a translator by trade, by started providing vehicles to, like, he just started driving cars to the battlefield, giving Ukrainian soldiers new cars to use. The Soviets were really good at making countries into ethno-states, yeah, and they made Poland into an ethno-state after 1945. I'm of the position that the USSR had no place as a permanent member of the UN Security Council. Poland should have been the permanent member instead. True. Poles dislike Russians, Belarusians, Hungarians, and Germans much more now than before the invasion of Ukraine, finds a study. Meanwhile, they like Ukrainians, Americans, and the English much more. Hungary did not play that whole thing well. Also, from what I'm hearing, Hungary once again is blocking help for Ukraine. So, yeah. So there you go. Russia demands $750 billion from Poland and demands that Poland gives its western lands to Russia for some reason. And yeah. And also, it did not say this here, but I know that the person said it from the Polish sources, that Poland would not exist as a state if it wasn't for Russia, which is basically just a copy pasta from when Russia says that Ukraine would not exist if it was not for Russia. No country would exist if it wasn't for Russia, I guess. So there you go. If you've enjoyed this segment, press like, press the bell, press subscribe, consider becoming a Patreon, and consider joining the page, the White Forest page, joining, becoming a subscriber there, throwing a donation my way. Consider doing all these things because they are nice and they allow me to prosper, as in survive. I need to post this on the Our Non-Credible Diplomacy. This is absurd of a demand. I mean, it is a Russian demand. It might seem like non-credible and absurd, but it is Russian. I mean, Russia is Russia. Russia being absurd is just par for the course, you know?